We, so that everyone here knows, next week for our annual meeting, again, we'll be right here in the sanctuary. We'll split it between the two ways of participating. It's going to be a lot shorter than it has been in previous years. We are not going to have reports from all of the different groups because a lot of those groups haven't met since last March. So our annual report, you'll notice this next week when you come, is going to be significantly shorter than it has been in the past. The meeting is going to be a lot shorter. We have two things that really need to get done at that meeting. We have to vote on a continuing resolution, which our council has put forward. And that continuing resolution is the very thing that allows us to meet in this hybrid way. It's a change to our constitution that says that we can meet electronically as needed. And so we'll have the exact words for you next week that you'll be able to see it, but it's not a controversial thing here. We're just saying, look, we went through a year where this became a necessity. Let's prepare for the future in case something like this ever happens again. So it gives us permission to meet electronically. Because the council adopted it as a continuing resolution, that gives us the constitutional authority to use it this year. When something is adopted in that way, it makes it effective for that year. But at the close of the next annual meeting, it is no longer in effect unless it is voted into the Constitution. So that's one of the two things we'll be voting on next week. The second thing is what we're going over today. We have to pass a budget so that we know how we're going to spend our money next year. And
wouldn't we have to make sure we get nominations in?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Three things. Forgot. Because the third thing will be we'll have to vote on who's going to be on council next year. So this week I'm going to be finalizing that list. If you've always wanted to be on council, give me a call sooner than later before all the spots are gone. But we'll also be having a vote on our council. So there will be three things that we have to do. I'm going to continue to function with the council about the size that we've had this year. But if you actually did really want to serve, and I have a full list, our council doesn't have a limit on how big it can be or on how small it can be. It should just be representative of the congregation pretty well. So we will do that. We will also vote on our council members. We will vote on that continuing resolution, and we will pass a budget one way or another. But the quicker that we can get through those things, the better, for the sake of, again, our social distancing and our efforts to continue to reduce the spread of this pandemic. So we're going to do things efficiently, effectively, and we're going to get out of here and everyone can go home and make their nachos for the football game. Ben, we're live.
We're set.
All right. Then I'm going to turn over to Council President Mike Pegram to open the meeting.
Good morning. So I will call this meeting to order, and I will ask Avis and Rich to come up and run through the budget for you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If they don't have the answer, I might have the answer. And if I don't have the answer, John might have the answer. So, but somehow we'll get your questions answered. And then I will come back up and we'll close the meeting. So I will turn it over to Avis and Rich. Do you want to come here or are you going to go over there?
Up there. And then while you're at the podium, you can remove your mask so the mic will pick you up better. Mike, you can just sit if you want. I'll hang out over here where I'm away from everyone. I have my own microphone. You can't get away from me. So Avis will take us through this last year's budget and just tell us kind of where we're at with everything. If you've got a question in-house, raise your hand and we'll let you ask your question. If you're on Zoom, I think the preferred method would be that you would type in your question and then Ben will relay it to us. But that way everyone can participate and that we're not shouting over each other. But yeah, so as Avis reads through the budget line by line, then.
For offering, the income sources offering 2020 actual $332,212. The plan for 2021 is $358,800. Broadcast Ministry Radio Fund, the actual revenue was $430. The plan for 2021 is $1,000. Gifts and memorials to the general fund and Redeemer have been discontinued. They are no longer, their gifts and memorials are going to gifts and memorials as they normally have, rather than coming to the general fund and Redeemer. Gratuities for building and parking, actual $820 for 2020. The plan for 2021 is $1,200. Other revenue, including Redeemer Lutheran Church, actual $24,473 this year, 2020. The plan for 21 is $25,000. Any questions? The total, that was, okay, then expenses, core worship, broadcast ministry, radio, funerals, parish activities, worship support, those three categories. Broadcast ministry radio radio last year was $1,938, $1,900 this year is a little bit less being planned. Funerals and parish activities, I guess generally, when the funerals are in the church versus not the church because of the COVID virus, that's been a lot less. It was $596 actual in 2020. The proposed is $900 for 2021. Worship support, $29.99 for 2020 actual. The plan for 2021 is $4,000 more. So this subtotal there would be $6,800 for the plan for the core worship. And it was last year, the expenditures were $55.33. Should I question each one? Or? Yeah. Okay, anybody have any questions on the care and worship categories?
I can add a little bit so that people are aware. The broadcast ministry radio, we did broadcast one extra service that we don't normally broadcast. And so that's where that $38 extra came from, and why we're not increasing it this year is we don't expect that to be a thing.
Okay.
And then the parish activities, the reason that we met our budget, but we wanted to increase it more is because we expect to have our regular outdoor worship service this coming year, which we did not have this year. And so we're allowing a little extra money to pay for that.
Okay. Any questions on that category for anybody? Okay.
Anything coming in from Zoom up there? No.
Okay. The next section is faith formation, and that includes, that's the family ministry, like our pumpkin carving, the Gal to Help Men, virtual vacation Bible study, and children's education, those categories. The actual expenditures in 2020 were $2,519, and the expenditures planned for 2021 are $2,500, $19 less. This subtotal then would be $2,500 for the budget and $2,519 for actual.
And
Anybody
I'll add in there that our expenses for family ministries are way over $2,500.
Yeah.
But we have people who specifically give to that ministry. And the fact that we were $19 over, that was more of an accident than anything. But we also didn't have as many in-house opportunities for people to give this year, specifically for that. This year, we're hoping that we'll have a lot more stuff in person, as hopefully things will continue to get better and improve. So we've kept that the same, but in that we help pay for our mission trips, the Boundary Waters trips that we've taken with kids, our educational ministries here, confirmation, a lot of stuff comes out of that budget. And so we're grateful that there are a lot of people that do donate specifically to that, and that goes into a separate checking account that is just for the youth. So that's not necessarily reflected in the budget because it doesn't come out of our general operating funds.
Any questions? Then the next category is serving in reach beyond our walls. It includes designated benevolence, social ministry, stewardship, and synod benevolence. For designated benevolence, that would be, we'd be giving $10 to each funeral deceased. And that started, that was in 2019, the actual was $80. And the plan in 2020 was $150. The actual was actually $140, giving the $10 per each funeral participant. The 2021 plan is something that John is going to talk about.
Yeah, I'll talk about that after.
You want to talk about that after?
Or I guess at the end of this category, I'll fill you in on why that one has such a big jump.
Okay. He's requesting a $5,000 that he's going to explain to you. It's a new idea. The social ministry was $292 in 2020, and the 2021 plan is $500. The stewardship has not been, there's nothing in there specifically under stewardship. Campaigns for that actually haven't been held. The synod benevolence, $11,065 for the actual, and the $10,000 for the plan in 21. And those are pretty much decided by the synod. We don't have much to say about that. So I don't know how it got to be $11,065. We had budgeted $8,000, but must have been something.
Yeah, I could touch on that too.
You'll explain about that, okay. And then the synod benevolence, that was what we just talked about, the synod benevolence. The subtotals are actual for 2020, $11,357, and budgeted or planned for 2021 is $15,500. And the significant difference John is going to explain to you. And
Yeah, so I'll start by going over the synod benevolence first. It's a combination. We, in our annual meetings in the past, have set a specific percentage that we have pledged to give. And so our synodical giving is based on what we expect to receive in donations. So however much we get in offerings, we give a percentage of that back to the synod automatically. So that $10,000 is based on, it's 3%, right, Rich? We're anticipating 3% of our giving. The reason that we went so far over this last year is because, again, when people give us money and they tell us they want it to go to the synod, we do that. And so people gave more money than we promised the synod, and so we did what they asked and we gave it to the synod. So it's a demonstration that when you give us money, you can trust that we're going to do the right thing with it. And we are always happy to give away more money than we have promised. One of the things that I don't want to do is to promise the synod that we're going to give them $11,000 again and then not have those come in. So we've based our budget again on that percentage rather than what we've received in the past. Because if we come and we give the synod an extra $1,000 at the end of the year, they're not going to be upset. They still met their budget and they happen to get an extra $1,000. It's a win-win for everybody. That is how I would much rather do our budgeting. I would rather underpromise and overdeliver on those kind of things. Now that said, there's a huge jump in what I have suggested for our designated benevolence. I believe that as a Christian community who is asking our members to give of your resources to us, it is our duty to model that same level of generosity back to you and to our community. Now, jumping ahead, you look at that bottom line this year, it's easy to get distracted by those top lines where we're not hitting our numbers. You look at that bottom line, we came in $19,000 in the black this year. $19,000. And we didn't meet in person for half or more than half of the year. Our giving was down because we couldn't be here. And yet we still managed to not meet our budget, but to come away that far ahead. Now, for us to see numbers like that and then not live out our promise to serve others seems irresponsible to me. And I would like to see us giving away, making our community a better place by reflecting that in our budget. If we plan to give away money, we will be more generous. Just like when I ask you to consider your giving here and to do so before the end of the month, I would like for us to do the same thing, because if we wait until the end of the year to see what's left over, we're not going to have $20,000 left over every year. Just like at home, if you wait till the end of the month to see how much you have left to put in the offering plate, you might find that you went out to eat a few too many times, or who knows. But if you sit down ahead of time and you look at what you have available to you and you plan to be generous before the end of the month, you will be generous. And I believe that we as a congregation are in a fantastic position to be generous. So let's plan for it. Let's be an example in our community. There are not other churches that are planning to be generous like this, but we can. And I'm just your pastor. You can decide no. You can ask to take that out and decide no. But as your pastor, I would really encourage you to consider planning to be generous this year. And so that's why there's that $5,000 in there. And what we have decided as a council is, if it is approved, the council will then designate that giving to local organizations in Mankato. So we will not be sending that off to Chicago, to the Synod. It will not be added to that giving. It will go to places that can make a difference right here in town.
Better. Much
Are there
better.
any questions?
Keep it local.
The next category is a support category. And advertising is the most significant thing. We are not having any, because now we have free advertising through social media, Facebook, our website, emails. And we now got permission to email rather than sending by postage when we have our annual meeting, for example. The 2020 plan, for 2020, there was no expenditure, even though they had $250 designated. And we continued to have zero planned for 2021. Now, auto and cell phone was $1,470. We have $3,000 designated for 2021. The $1,470 was again because of the virus.
Yeah, Ben and I did not accrue mileage. We weren't traveling all over the
Okay.
state, going to conferences and meetings like where I'm required to go to meetings every month usually, all over the Synod, and I didn't go to any of them since March.
Okay, and even maybe before, because there's a zero for conventions and retreats. And we had a retreat normally for the council that we stopped doing that too. $1,000 is put down for the 2021 plan, just as probably in case, because you have some mandatory things that he has to go to, that the pastor has to go to. Fees, dues, and subscriptions, and those are things, like our, the magazines, Christ in Your Home. Well, no, that's down in general congregational supplies. Fees, dues, and subscriptions would be like Zoom and display. I think I've got annual record keeping, fees for the subscriptions. And that was $5,000 designated, and $53.64 was spent in 2020. But we got a beautiful printer that included free free copies.
Yeah, so that cost has gone
Unlimited.
down.
Isn't that under that?
What's that?
That's under that category, I believe.
I don't know. Is the subscription under that one? I don't think it is. I think that's probably under general. But this one would include, it's above this year because we had to start using Zoom. We have had to start using a few other programs to help us do all of the digital stuff that we've started doing, which costs us a subscription fee every month. It also includes our domain hosting fees, our website hosting fees. It includes subscriptions to ShareFaith, which is where we get graphics to do our PowerPoint slides. There's just a lot of these things that go into making this place run. And so that's
And
what
we're
that
different
is.
from
Kate,
last
what is
year.
it? And the cost of our payroll software and and our record keeping software where we issue all of you your giving statements so that you can get your taxes reduced slightly, hopefully. All of those things, all of our record keeping software costs us every month.
So and that's why it went 364 over, because we didn't have Zoom and all these things before that. And this year we're proposing 5,500, which is 500 more than the 2020 plan was. And that should then take care of things because we know the expenses. The general congregation supplies, and that's where the envelopes, Lutheran magazine, Christ in Our Home, those things are under that. And that's, instead of 1,500, they spent $1,298 in 2020, and we budgeted 1,400 for 2021. Office supplies, postage, copier, and computer, that's where the computer comes in. That was, they allowed 13,500 and we only spent 10,037 and are budgeting 12,000 for 21. The pastor's discretionary, hard luck people paying bills for people, when that's at the pastor's discretion according to his talking with people and whatever. There was 300 budgeted. Nothing was spent in 2020, but we've budgeted $150 for 2021.
In the event that something comes up where I feel like I can help, it's nice to have something, but it's not something that we've used here. It's also just not a general practice. We give in different ways. We tend to support organizations that we know are making a difference instead of having people come in and ask for money directly. And so I would rather continue with that route. I think that making a bigger difference in the community is far more helpful than individuals who come in. But in the event that something extraordinary happens, I think that having something is helpful.
The next one is technology, and that's Riverfront Technologies, who does we have an annual fee for that. And it was 4,900, but 4,875 was actually spent in 2020. So the 4,900 is put back for 2021. So the total then for administration and supplies is 23,044 spent in 2020, 27,950 proposed for 2021. Anybody have any questions on that? The next part is building and grounds, so I think we'll take this one first. Any questions? Were there any questions on Zoom or anything?
There was one comment about agreeing with the pastor about designated benevolence.
Perfect.
What?
One person agreed on Zoom about having some kind of designated.
Oh, good, okay. The building and grounds then consists of insurance, repairs, improvements, supplies, utilities, and those are for 2020 for insurance, includes property insurance and umbrella, 5,976. It was budgeted for 6,000. We're doing 6,200. That always increases for 2021. Then the next category, repairs, improvements, and supplies. 13,000 was budgeted in 2020, but 10,537 spent because, again, the COVID, so there was a lot less activity. And we're budgeting 12,000 instead of the 13,000 for 2021, because we're still kind of in the middle of this. Utilities, phone, refuse, gas, water, and electric, 28,000 was budgeted, 26,744 was spent. Again, it wasn't open as much as normal. And 2021 plan is going to be the same as what was budgeted in 2020, which is 28,000. The total then for building and grounds was spent $43,257, and the budgeted for 2021 is $46,200. Then the next, I guess I'll do that first, and then we've got personnel staff as the last category under the support. Does anybody have questions on the building and grounds?
And I do have one request from Dell to announce, and he'll be here at our annual meeting next week, but our parking lot is in really, really bad shape behind the building. It needs extensive repair work, and it will be very expensive to fix. But the longer we wait, the more expensive it gets. Our side parking lot needs to be sealed this summer. We're just not sure that the budget is the place for those. So we are planning on running a special appeal this year to cover those things. But just keep that in mind, that those are expenses that need to be taken care of. There may be some funds in the gifts and memorials that we can pull from, but it's not going to be enough to cover that. So there will be some kind of a special appeal to do some maintenance this year on our property.
Any other questions or anything from Zoom? No?
Nothing here.
Okay. The personnel staff and contract staff, wages, benefits, and payments, $287,978 was budgeted for 2020, but only $251,813 spent. The hours were reduced because of the COVID and not being in.
That's, I'll touch on that. It wasn't really hours.
We're going back to the 287,000, only 300 instead of 978.
Yeah. So the reason there's a difference there isn't, we continued to have our staff that is in-house here throughout the whole thing. Some of it was reduced because our contract workers and our worship support people that we sometimes pay haven't been here because of COVID. And some of them will never be coming back because their job just no longer exists, which is why there's a slight reduction in the cost. Another savings was, so most of it is just from that difference in some of those extra things that didn't happen because of worship. But I just want to stress that our staff, our 9-to-5 staff here, we did not lay off people or discontinue paying people because of COVID. We did not do that. So we have been very supportive. We tried to be really faithful in that way. We thought it was our duty. We received a PPP loan, and so we used that funds to make sure that our staff was paid.
Okay. The totals then for the whole area of support for 2020 was $318,114, and planned for 2021 is $361,450, which is less than what was budgeted in 2020, and then they spent a lot less than that for some of the things that John has talked about. So the total expenses then, that's all the categories, $337,523 for actual in 2020. For 2021, the plan, we haven't got the total down there. We've got $386,250 for the total expenses. There's a couple of other things down below, a free will offering meals, like Wednesday meals that we used to have on every Wednesday. 250 was budgeted, and it's 150 in the hole. Is that because of connections?
Well, just because we didn't run the whole year.
Oh, okay. Okay, and then 250 is, again, going to be suggested for 2021. The shelter fund is now in Presbyterian Church, and we have, now what does that mean? Was it a deficit of 431?
Means they spent that.
Yeah, so
Out of their total amount that they have in the checking account.
Oh, okay. So it's a $431, and there's nothing put down for 2021. And I don't, now the $19,831 in the black is for what, John?
the 19,691 in the black at the actual?
The actual for 2020,
Yeah, that's how much less we spent than what we had brought in.
that's how much,
Less we spent than what we brought in.
right.
We came in $19,000, 691.
And that's in
ahead.
comparison to having $16,031 less in 2019 rather than more.
Yeah, I think it can't be stressed enough how much I want to celebrate a $35,000 swing in our books over 2019. We went from 16,000 in the red to 19,000 in the black. That is incredible, especially during a year with as many challenges as we faced. It is incredible, and it is largely due to the fact that people continued to faithfully give even when they couldn't come and sit in the pews. And it makes me very proud to be the pastor here, to have that happen, to be that faithful at a time when so much was up in the air is incredible. And in addition to that, we're not even taking into account special gifts that were made to buy, for example, our PTZ camera that is in the back of the room now that allows us to broadcast better, or a whole lot of other funds that were given to buy us a new digital switching board and some other pieces as we have improved the ways that we serve in that way. We've had significant gifts, and we've met our obligations, and we've come out ahead. So it's something to celebrate. Ryan?
So I've got a question, maybe this is a step back to one of the earlier categories. Is anybody surprised that our utilities weren't significantly lower? I guess I just expected, I'd be surprised, after after you were closed out about 3 months and we saved about 30%, and there's not too much of a difference. I was just thinking with the sanctuary being closed, but we didn't see that much of a difference, huh?
Right. I think a lot of the difference in the utilities, for one, the rec has gigantic spaces that you probably weren't heating. We continued to keep this place above freezing, and it's a boiler system, so there isn't that much changed. Whether we bring it up for a couple hours in the morning or not, the boiler is still boiling in the basement. And so that doesn't reduce. And even though we didn't have the lights on, people think they're paying to keep the lights on, but surprisingly, we don't have that many lights that turn on and off in here. And to have the lights off in this room for 2 hours a week, it just doesn't make that big of a difference. Our offices continued to be used, at least in a small way, throughout. And we had to continue to pay for internet and telephone, and those are the kind of things that are really the bulk of our bills. So we're just not big enough to save money that way yet.
Well, the overall number isn't huge.
Right. Yeah, exactly. At $26,000. If it had been a $50,000 budget, maybe we would have seen a little bit more, but, and we still continued to use our building in whatever ways that we could throughout the pandemic. There were still really small groups that would sometimes come and use the space because it's all that they had available. And yeah. Anything else?
We got one question that came in from Zoom.
Okay.
It is the PPP loan included in these numbers?
Great question. Is the PPP loan included in the numbers? No. we would have been $40,000 in the black had that been forgiven this year. It's almost certainly going to be forgiven. It's just that it's the government. So it's slow. Rich has already filled out several applications for forgiveness, and when he turns one in, they issue a new form, and they say, if you just fill this one out, we promise this will be the last one, and then they send us a new form, and it just goes on. But eventually, it will be forgiven, and so we are functionally starting this year with, is it 21,000? $28,300 that will be earned income whenever that is done. So we're starting out significantly ahead. We've got a big push. We managed to come in that far ahead without that assistance. We were very careful with our money this last year, and it's wonderful. So no, it did not include that.
I guess I just have one more, like a comment and a question maybe too. I think the budget is it's conservative, but it's also like pushing us for some growth.
Yep.
So I like that. I think it's realistic. And it's, I have to put together almost an identical budget for the rest of the year, and it's in the same categories. And it's just a plan.
Yeah.
Right? Like your sermon said, that and the plan changes. I think it's pretty realistic. The thing that I noticed is we have a $35,000 swing, but we also save $35,000 in salary this year.
Yep.
We're also down $25,000 in giving.
Yep.
So that's where about half of that came in other savings, and it looks like the staff had great things on saving where we could.
Yep.
So there's still going to be a push, like we're all going to still need to step up to make that difference happen.
Yep.
If the salaries can probably go back to normal, they are getting back.
Yep. The expectation is that, yeah, we do have to push. I mean, we're asking people to consider how you give and to hopefully grow. We're also counting at least a little bit on the fact that we're going to have Easter and or Christmas in person, hopefully. We didn't have either of those this year. I mean, that was a big hit in giving. So our giving was down last year, but we didn't have our three biggest services because there's 2 on Easter. So, that coupled with, again, the hope that we can grow to be one of the most generous congregations in Mankato, hopefully that will inspire us to consider how do we grow in our giving. Yeah, thank you.
Isn't there another, like the technology of giving automatically? That's something
Yep.
increased, I think, a little bit.
Yeah. So, and that's in with those fees, dues, and subscriptions. We're paying for the opportunity for people to give electronically. And so we're shifting towards that. And as more people give automatically, we're not going to see that drop off if something were to happen. Like that, I hope we never go through another year like this, at least while I'm around. Hopefully never, ever. But in the event that something does happen, to know that we can continue to serve faithfully in the ways that we're committed to serving because that electronic giving is there, that's really helpful for us. So hopefully that will continue to grow. Any other questions, suggestions? This isn't set in stone yet. If you wanted to, if somebody's passionate about changing something, if you think we're way off the mark, we haven't put enough money into the budget, that's fine. We can increase that giving to however high you want to go. But for real, if you have questions or concerns, now is the time.
Penny on Zoom says people have confidence in the Grace leadership.
All right. Thank you, Penny. All right. I think we're done then.
I think we should thank, like Rich. Rich does a fabulous job with this. I don't know how.
So thank you everyone for coming and all those that were on Zoom with us. If we could maybe just rise and close with the Lord's Prayer. If that would be possible. So traditional? Sure. Is it? Oh, okay. Okay, traditional. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
All right, thank you everyone for joining us, and we will see you again next week. One way or another.